There is a place in the world where 2,000-year-old tears still wet ancient stones, where the whispers of millions of souls mix with the echo of prayers that were never answered, or were they? What you're about to discover about the Wailing Wall might shake your beliefs. Secrets buried for centuries, episodes governments tried to hide, and a mystery that no scientist has been able to explain. Get ready for a journey into the most dangerous and sacred heart of Jerusalem. The Wailing Wall is not just a wall, it is the last remaining fragment of the Second Temple of Solomon, destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 CE. But the real story begins much earlier. In 957 BCE, King Solomon built the first temple on that very spot. Legend says it housed the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred and powerful object ever created by man. Inside it were the tablets with the 10 Commandments, written by the very finger of God. When the Babylonians destroyed the first temple in 586 BCE, the Ark vanished. It was never found again. Some believe it still lies buried beneath the Wailing Wall. The second temple was rebuilt 70 years later, grander than the first. Its white marble walls glistened like snow in the sun. Pure gold covered its inner chambers. It was one of the wonders of the ancient world. Each limestone block that remains today was carved over 2,000 years ago. Some stones weigh more than 500 tons. How did they move such massive blocks without modern technology? To this day, it's a mystery. When I think about the scale of that construction, I wonder, what kind of faith literally moves mountains? Historians say that during the Roman destruction, the sound of the temple collapsing could be heard miles away. The fire burned for days. Over 1 million Jews were killed or enslaved. And when the smoke cleared, only this wall was left standing. But what's most astonishing are the secrets this wall still holds. In 1967, after the Six-Day War, Israeli archaeologists began excavating near the wall. What they found was chilling: secret tunnels stretching for kilometers beneath the old city. These tunnels were built by ancient Jews as escape routes during sieges. Inside them, they found the skeletons of entire families who had hidden there during the Roman destruction. Some were still holding prayer scrolls. But something even more disturbing was reported. In certain sections of the tunnels, electronic devices stop working. Compasses spin wildly. Recording equipment picks up voices whispering in ancient Aramaic. The official explanation is magnetic interference, but workers who spent nights in the tunnels tell a different story. They say they hear footsteps, weeping, and prayers coming from the stones. In 1996, archaeologists discovered a single stone measuring 13 meters long and weighing 570 tons. It is the largest stone ever moved by humans in antiquity. How did they transport it? No one knows. Sometimes I wonder if we underestimate what our ancestors were capable of, or if they had help we don't understand. The Wailing Wall lies directly below the Temple Mount, Islam's third holiest site. This geographical closeness has created one of the most complex religious tensions in the modern world. To Jews, it's the last remnant of Solomon's temple. To Muslims, it's Al-Haram al-Sharif, where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven in a miraculous night journey. But there's a third group few talk about: American evangelical Christians. They believe the temple must be rebuilt for Jesus to return to earth. Some donate millions of dollars to groups planning to demolish the mosques. Access to the wall is strictly controlled. Israeli soldiers patrol every corner. Metal detectors guard every entrance. Security cameras watch every movement, every prayer, every tear. There's a secret military protocol called Operation Cornerstone. If a religious war breaks out at the site, the Israeli army has orders to evacuate all civilians in under 6 minutes. Islamic authorities also have their secrets. Rumors suggest they've built underground bunkers beneath the Temple Mount, ready to withstand a prolonged siege. On August 21, 1969, something happened that nearly set the entire Middle East on fire. Dennis Michael Rohan, a 28-year-old mentally ill Australian tourist obsessed with biblical prophecy, arrived in Jerusalem with an apocalyptic mission to destroy the mosques and prepare the way of the Lord. He studied the site's security for weeks. He discovered that between 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. there were fewer guards. He hid gallons of kerosene in strategic locations inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. At 11:17 a.m., Rohan poured kerosene on the 12th century wooden pulpit and set it on fire. Within minutes, flames consumed 1,500 square meters of one of the world's holiest sites. Photos from that morning show orange flames reaching the sky as thousands screamed in the streets. Saladin's pulpit, a masterpiece of Islamic art, was reduced to ashes. But what followed was even more terrifying. Rumors spread like wildfire that Israel had orchestrated the fire to destroy the mosques and rebuild the temple. Angry crowds marched from the West Bank and Gaza toward the wall. Stones flew. Molotov cocktails exploded. Blood was spilled on the same stones where people had come seeking peace for centuries. The Arab world erupted in protests. Violent demonstrations broke out in Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad. Arab governments threatened to declare holy war against Israel. When I studied this event, I realized something profound. One man with a single can of kerosene nearly triggered World War III. That's how dangerously close the sacred and the profane can coexist. If you've made it this far and feel the same tension these ancient stones carry, comment "Living Stone." I want to know how many of you believe these places hold more than just history. But there's an even more chilling story, one that took place on April 11th, 1982. Alan Harry Goodman, a 37-year-old Israeli-American soldier, had lost his job, was divorced, and suffered from mental illness. He became convinced God had chosen him to liberate the Temple Mount. Goodman stole an M16 from the military base where he served. He put on his reserve uniform and headed to the Temple Mount during noon prayers, when hundreds of Muslims were prostrating toward Mecca. Witnesses say he shouted Allahu Akbar in Hebrew, mocking the Islamic prayer, and opened fire indiscriminately. People in prayer, in a moment of divine connection, were interrupted by bullets and screams. Hassan Shafiq, a 34-year-old teacher, died instantly. Salah Ahmad, a 28-year-old merchant, died 3 days later in the hospital. Dozens were injured, some critically. Goodman shouted that he was liberating the holy site and that the third temple would rise on the blood of infidels. He was subdued by Muslim worshippers who nearly lynched him. What he really did was desecrate both the Jewish and Muslim faiths. After the attack, tensions rose so high that Israeli soldiers and Palestinian police nearly went to war. For 48 hours, the Wailing Wall was closed for the first time since 1967. In that forced silence, with no prayers echoing off the ancient stones, the wall felt dead. But there's one story Israeli authorities prefer not to tell. In 1984, Israeli police uncovered a secret group called the Gush Emunim Underground. They were Jewish extremists planning to blow up the Dome of the Rock to rebuild the temple. They had stolen military explosives, studied architectural plans of the mosques, and even picked the date, during Ramadan, when thousands of Muslims would be praying. The plan was diabolical: destroy the Dome of the Rock during dawn prayers when the site would be full. Hundreds would die. The Islamic world would declare holy war on Israel. But there was a second objective. In the chaos of war, they would rebuild Solomon's temple, They already had the materials, hired architects, even rabbis prepared to resume the ancient rituals. The plot was discovered by accident. One member dropped a backpack full of explosives at a bus stop. Police traced the materials back to the extremist cell. During interrogation, allegations surfaced about possible connections to influential figures, including some American millionaires and Israeli politicians, though many of these names were never confirmed. On the other hand, it's important to remember that the conflict has also seen attacks from Palestinian and Muslim groups. During the Second Intifada, for example, suicide bombings and rocket attacks against Israeli civilians caused death and suffering, escalating fear and tension on both sides. These events show that violence comes from both directions, making peace even harder to achieve. Yet, despite all the violence and tension, something magical happens at the wall every day. People from all over the world place tiny pieces of paper between the ancient stones, requests, prayers, confessions, dreams, written in 127 different languages, according to a study by Hebrew University. There's a centuries-old belief that prayers made at the Wailing Wall go straight to God. Jews believe the divine presence never left this place even after the temple's destruction. There's a fascinating ritual. Twice a year, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, all these papers are collected by rabbis and buried on the Mount of Olives because they contain the sacred name of God. The process is filmed and documented. In 2019, over 2 million notes were collected. Some were decades old, preserved in the crevices of the stones. Extraordinary stories are documented every year. A Brazilian woman named Maria Santos traveled 20 hours to leave a prayer asking for her son's healing from leukemia. She cried so much that her tears soaked the stones. 4 months later, the boy went into complete remission. A Japanese businessman left a prayer asking to find his daughter, who had been missing for 10 years. 3 weeks later, she appeared at the Japanese embassy in Tel Aviv, with no memory of where she had been. Some say the wall weeps at certain times of the year. Not literal tears, but moisture that drips from the stones, especially on the 9th of Av, the day that marks the temple's destruction. Scientists from the University of Jerusalem studied the phenomenon for 5 years. They found no meteorological explanation. The moisture appears even on dry days and then vanishes mysteriously. There are also reports of people hearing whispers from the stones. In 2018, a team of German paranormal investigators recorded unexplained sounds at the wall during the night. The recordings captured whispers in ancient Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. Experts confirmed the voices were reciting verses from the Psalms of David. Coincidence? Miracle? Faith? I don't know. But there's something about that place that defies every rational explanation I've ever known. But there's also a darker side few people know, the apocalyptic prophecies surrounding the Wailing Wall. According to Jewish tradition, the Messiah will only return once the Third Temple is rebuilt. Extremist groups believe this justifies any action, including global war. American evangelical Christians donate over $100 million a year to accelerate the reconstruction. They believe it will trigger the second coming of Christ and the end of days. There is a secret organization called the Temple Institute that has already prepared all the sacred utensils for the rituals: golden altars, priestly garments, musical instruments, all waiting for the right moment. They've even bred a special red heifer needed for purification rituals. According to prophecy, when a perfect red heifer is born, it will be the sign to rebuild the temple. In 2022, a calf was born that meets all prophetic requirements. Extremist groups see it as a divine signal. If this video moved you, if you felt something different while learning these forbidden stories, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. we have many more sacred routes to reveal. And tell me in the comments, do you believe places can hold spiritual energy? Have you ever experienced something unexplainable in a sacred site? Share your story. The Wailing Wall is more than ancient stones. It's a portal between past and future, between the human and the divine, between faith and reason. These stones have witnessed the building and destruction of temples, the rise and fall of empires, tears of despair and cries of joy. They will stand long after we are gone. New people will come, touch their cold surfaces, leave their most intimate wishes, shed their sincerest tears, because we are all pilgrims searching for something greater than ourselves. This journey has taught me that the sacred is not only in the stones, but in the human ability to keep believing, even when all seems lost. And maybe that's what makes the Wailing Wall truly eternal. But it also made me question, how far can faith go before it justifies violence? Where does devotion end and fanaticism begin? These are questions each of us must answer for ourselves. This was another sacred route. Until the next journey, if the world still exists.